the changes to the classification of W-2 versus 1099. So I actually did some research on this and really dug into it. So I have a pretty clear picture now of what the changes are. So the main thing that changed was that they added they changed the primary thing they're looking at is whether or not the person is getting the majority of their income from your business. If the business that is hiring the person is their primary source of income, and they're like, if they lose that, they lose pretty much all their income, then it's going to be basically impossible to consider that person a 1099 independent contractor under these new laws. Now, I think there's still a big question about how much this is going to be enforced, but and just to get all the official names out here. So it's the Fair Labor Standards Act, which passed in, I'm actually going to share my screen on this. It's the Fair Labor Standards Act. Actually had ChatGPT do some analysis on it as well. But they have a section within the Fair Labor Standards Act, and the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed, I believe, in January. No, that was. So it's effective March 11th. So it's going into effect. It was passed in January, going into effect March 11th. And there's a section here, classification of employees as independent contractors. And so this is the new standards of whether or not someone is a employee or an independent contractor, or how they should be classified. Working for someone else's business versus in business for themselves. Generally can only earn more by working additional hours. Can increase profit through business decisions. Typically uses the employer's materials, tools, and equipment. Typically provides their own materials, tools, and equipment. Typically works for one employer or may be prohibited from working for others. So this is like really big with sales reps, because like obviously you can't have your sales rep working for a different roofing company, right? So that's a prohibition on them working for other employers. Often works with multiple clients. Continuing or indefinite relationship with the employer. Temporary relationship until project completed. Employer decides how and when the work will be performed. Yeah, so I mean, if you're setting hours on when your guys are going out and knocking doors or doing sales, I mean, that's going to be, a no-go. Decides on how and when they will perform the work. Employer assigns the work to be performed, decides what work or projects they will take on. So these are the new standards, and it is going to make specifically, I think the subcontractor model, as long as the subcontractor is not exclusively working for your business, I don't think that's going to be affected. I think a lot of people have been talking about that, but this is basically, if this gets enforced, and that's I think a big question. If it gets enforced, this is going to pretty much completely eliminate the ability to hire 1099 sales reps.
And that's just it. And that's where the problem's always been, is the 1099 employee. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a 1099 employee.
Yeah.
An employee, they receive a W-2. But I think we do, and I'll be honest with you, I don't really like it. I don't like the subcontractor model personally. But it's the best way right now. It's the best way to stay competitive and to run a tight ship. But the other, it's what everybody's doing, so if you're going to compete, that's what you got to do. But the other side of that, we're playing in a real gray area now. I believe, reading that list, that I could probably pass an inspection, but I also guarantee you, if I got the wrong inspector, they could warrant that those guys are employees. So I think we're playing in a real gray area. I think it's always been that there's no such thing as a 1099 employee, and now they're finally just putting the right things in writing to state that. And I've hated that, because I've got a ton of competitors that have 1099 employees, and I'm talking labor. They wear their shirts, they drive their trucks, haul their dump trailers, and they're getting 1099s, but they're paying them $15 an hour is a 1099. Well, if I pay a guy $15 an hour, it costs me 20. So it's, because he's getting a W-2 and he's got insurance and he's got workers' comp. These guys don't have workers' comp that are 1099 employees.
Right.
So, I think it's a good thing, but I also think it's really, really gray. And I think it could be problematic for a lot of guys, but we'll see.
Yep.